Welcome. So it's welcome to Niche Talks with me, Penny Lee, and guests for inspiring conversations with those daring to be different. Your niche is where you thrive, and I revel in mine, and I love to help others find theirs. I'm very happy that you're here for our second episode. Yes, we're doing more of these beauties. And for our second episode, I am delighted to welcome Dani Molyneux, aka Dotto. So Dani Molyneux is a type-twisting artist and designer based in the UK. Her work features powerful messages told through playful type. Trained in visual communication at Leeds Arts University, Dani has worked in Leeds and London and Northern agencies for selective clients including Channel 4, Cadbury's, Marks & Spencer's, Diageo and the Royal Academy of Music. Working with branding and typography, she makes words work and speak to the audience. In true Dani supporting style, she has selected D&AD Youngblood portfolio picks and gives regular guest lectures at art schools across the country. She co-founded Ladies Wine and Design Manchester, holding monthly sold-out events, curating and hosting an ongoing series of speakers and panel conversations, which I know is no mean feat, alongside facilitating partner events with creative agencies and design festivals. Dani takes part in exhibitions, curates events, speaks and writes. She's been featured locally and internationally from Manchester to Milan. Artist, designer, creator, type twister, language lover, change maker, dream believer. And I love this bit. Dani's had enough of being quiet, haven't we all? With her art as a catalyst, Dani is now putting her voice out into the world and helping others to do the same. Her mission to get less heard voices to speak up and speak out, helping difficult conversations and bigger issues have a sense of play to lighten the seriousness and overwhelm and to get us all talking on things that matter. So, as we said, Dani is the person behind Dotto, a studio, a store, a person and more, which I love. Dotto captures ideas, thoughts and feelings in uncomplicated, vibrant ways, using words and playful graphic style to create a sense of something bigger. She's working with founders, creators, change makers, innovators, basically people who have something to say. And I'll add a website onto the show notes and I recommend going and taking a look. So Dani and I met via Ladies Wine and Design Manchester, and it was the same time as I was running and hosting Creative Morning Sheffield, and it was an immediate bond that I'm very grateful for. Dani has helped hone my visual style as well as collaborating for quite a few clients, and as well as being an incredibly supportive and inspiring friend, the sort we should all be surrounding ourselves with. So welcome, Dani.
Hello. That's a good intro. Thanks for that banging intro.
Hey. Well, we'll start with the first question that basically shuts me up and gets you talking. So we start with the question, what started you on your own path?
Okay, so there's probably like kind of two ways to answer the question, really. I'd say the first one is actual like practical reality, and that was basically having my daughter, because that's when I started working for myself. So I was working in an agency that I liked in Liverpool, but I was commuting to, from Manchester back and forth. And I think when I'd taken the time off with my daughter, just sort of getting back into that commute and kind of managing it around everything else, practically it started to not make any sense. And I think around that same time, like I've been wanting to do my own thing for ages. And I think it's quite difficult once you're in full-time work and you're working in an agency, it's so all-consuming that it's really hard to do things on the side, for yourself. And it kind of, all this stuff had been bubbling under the surface, all these things that I wanted to do and kind of try to do them. So it sort of suddenly seemed like, I don't know, you think I'm never just going to quit my job. I mean, you might do, but it just seemed like a kind of a gift, like the perfect time. I'd had this, I'd taken this obviously cut in salary because I was on maternity pay at the time. So, whatever, I can't remember what that was, but like you get used to it, and it didn't seem as scary. It didn't seem as kind of, I don't know, I just thought I kind of thought it's now or never. I don't think that's the case, but like that was basically what started me working for myself. And then it was a super winding path, as always. So what I did first of all was work in lots of different agencies, which again isn't quite what I wanted to do, but I was sort of testing out what to do and where to go, and kind of it was really slowly building different work and finding out I didn't I didn't have a niche, I didn't have a plan, I didn't have a kind of work that I wanted to do in that way. I was just basically looking for work that I wanted to do, clients that I connected with, and trying to move from working within agencies to start building my own client base and things like that. So it's this kind of, it was really like testing, when we say like build as you go, that's kind of what I was doing. I was just I felt like I threw myself into some flipping big lake, and then I was just like splashing around going like, I'll try over here, then I'll do over here. And I think the way things kind of work out, not necessarily how you think they're going to, but yeah, I'm not quite sure they've answered that, but that's basically how I started.
Well, I think it's in all the splashing about that we find what we really enjoy doing, what we're really good at, and who we really like working with. So I do think it takes that experimenting, and when you have been in a structured agency, everything's, you're just given a job that's there, and you're working with these people, and then suddenly you can choose, if you're lucky. But you certainly can choose who you're going to approach and how you're going to do it, and you just, nothing like diving in at the deep end to learn quick. I love the splashing around analogy. But I think it's that splashing around that's where you find what works for you, rather than just doing what's handed to you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's kind of, I suppose, again, it's those things where you start to do different projects and you start to work with different people, and some things work really well and some things don't. And it's kind of starting to have not just the confidence, but kind of, sort of the confidence to figure out the ones you say no to, the ones that you push. And also, I don't know, I think I've been saying this a lot this year actually, but I think a lot of it's about kind of holding your nerve as well with when you're working for yourself, like everything's Patience. So up in the air, and it's like a really long game. It's like,
it is holding your nerve, because it feels like a really long time to you. Like a month could seem a really long time if you don't hear anything.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's nothing in the long game scheme of things, and good stuff takes time to build. And I think people often get scared and run away from the thing that they should be doing because there's not an immediate reaction. And I think most people that you speak to, there isn't an immediate reaction. And certainly the stuff that lasts. It's long game stuff, slow builds, slow burners.
Yeah, and I've definitely done that as well, where you try, so if you're starting something, it feels like it's something really good, and then you don't get like an immediate reaction, or you don't get some traction with it, and you think, oh, that's not working. But it isn't. You've just got to really keep going. Like,
well, if you feel, there was a brilliant interview recently with Rick Rubin that I just heard on a clip, and I'll share it later as well. But it was that thing about just having that sense of knowing in yourself, like if you know it's a thing, that's as powerful as if someone else thinks it. Like if you know it, just do it and keep at it and craft it and carve it. And
it is weird, actually. It is weird because I know. Yeah, I think that's one of the things I've definitely come to learn over the past few years. And it is that kind of sort of trusting that gut feeling with a lot of stuff. And I think obviously you can't rely on that being like bulletproof. But there are times when previously, like in sort of a more, like corporate work setting where you're not, I don't know, you're taught to work a different way, like, and I think the thing that works for me now, it is really, well, yeah, basically. And you don't trust yourself in the same way. And once you step away from that, it's really hard to get back into the habit of trusting those gut feelings. And I don't know, like, obviously that doesn't mean, like I said, it's not bulletproof. You're not always going to be right. Like sometimes you have to adjust and change things. But I think really trusting and sort of letting yourself be guided by those, I don't know, like that internal, whatever it is a really good start. I think it definitely sets you on the right path and kind of, I found trust in those things. And when I haven't trusted that and I've kind of gone against it, like I've got into my logical head and gone, oh, well, maybe you should do this. It doesn't go well.
Yeah.
So, and then afterwards you go, I should have trusted that feeling. So it's
but you've only got yourself to blame, haven't you? Once you're away from agency land and doing your own thing.
Yeah, exactly.
There is just yourself to blame. But when was like a first moment then? Like, especially now, because we'll go into it a bit later about where your niche is heading now, but very much the type art vibe. When did you, was there like a moment when you first made something and felt it and went, this really feeds my soul. This is something that I want to incorporate with what I do.
Yeah, it's really funny that, because I think there's a few different things actually. I think one was, I remember once, I think, again, it was quite early on freelance stuff. I wouldn't call anything type art or anything like that, but I'd done some photography, some work photography with Mark Howe, and he'd said something about the style of my work and, it was type and colour and things. And this was very much before the things that I'm doing now. But again, it was something I wasn't aware of. Like you do your work in a certain way. And obviously I've been working for other clients, so I'm solving their problems. Wasn't trying to be, work in a style or anything like that. That's not what I was trying to do. But I was doing it anyway because
it's your style.
You're still a designer. You still do you
to a certain extent.
Yeah, exactly. So there was one point then that I started to think, oh yeah, actually, like there's something in this. And then I think again, it was probably, I don't even know when it was, but I started to do these. I've got these notebooks that I've had forever. When I was working, always. And if I look back at them, I always, all throughout, any time, I've just got doodles of words, of sentences, like in these kind of forms that I just didn't ever turn into anything. And I'd have them in my head and they'd be in my notebook, and I never used to do anything with them at all. They'd just be in there. And then I think it might have been the tiny guide stuff. So I'd started to, when you're working on stuff, and I was like, we're all talking about personal projects and doing all these things, and, want an outlet to make, whatever you want to do, what things that are in your head on the page. And I've been chatting to Laura Boast from Conscious Made Studio. And I, again, had this notebook. Every time I go away somewhere, I just dump a load of stuff in a notebook, and it'd be like, colours, photographs, little doodles, those kind of things. And I've been talking to Laura, and I've been saying, I've been kind of like, I've got this kind of idea that I want to do these things. And, I probably would have carried on for like 4 years or something saying this. And Laura said to me, great, that sounds good, Dani. I want to see 3 designs by the end of the month. Now, I don't work for Laura, she just gave me this random deadline, which is basically what you need. You just need a deadline. So even though that's, it's not set in stone, Laura wasn't going to do anything if I didn't do them. I did them. I just made them. And then I got in touch with Phil Crisp, letterpress extraordinaire, and we went and printed them in these little letterpress things. And I remember talking to my partner Robin about them. He's like, yeah, Dani, what are you doing though? This isn't a business. Who's going to buy these? And I was like, yeah, no, I know. And
something
people are going to be like,
to get out.
What is it? Yeah, and people were like, what are they? Are they like coasters? Are they maps? And it was like this weird, pointless thing.
Not pointless.
And then I just kept making those. Well, it wasn't pointless. I flipping love them. They're like these little jewels. And I kept making those for a bit. And it started me on a bit of an outlet. And then after that, I did a few things like, I think it's for Design Manchester, where it was the art school brief or something. And I made the Take Up More Space print.
I love that one.
And I think with that one, yeah, I think one of the things about that one, so the tiny guide stuff was something that sort of really captured like a feel, a mood of a place, that kind of thing. But with the Take Up More Space thing, it was something super simple. But it seemed to resonate with quite a lot of people, and I hadn't expected it to. And the brief was to go back to like, if you were going to rewrite the rules of art school or something, what would your rule be? So I was this, just take up more space, which lots of people, what lots of people talk about. But for me personally,
I didn't know that's how that started.
That's how that started. And and I don't know. I just thought there was two things. Something about it kind of resonating with people was interesting because, there's a bit of ego there. You go, oh, actually, somebody likes this, like, hooray. But the other thing was I suddenly thought, oh my God, I've got so many of these. Like that are just in my head, in my notebook, a million things. And then I thought, because things like I'd started very vaguely the print shop and I'd sort of half-arsed it again. I kind of gone, oh, it's over here. And that's when I thought, well, actually, this could be a really good outlet to make things. Work feeds off it. It's work. It's not work. It exists with client work, but it kind of bounces off each other. So that's when I sort of turned the print shop into a thing, and then I could make these kind of typographic statements or words and turn them into things like it. And because I love print and things like that as well, and colour, it was just this.
All of the things.
It sort of grew from there. All of the things.
All of the things.
So,
I think as well, out of how you've explained that as well, I think a really good point is when discovering your own style, and whether as a designer or just even how you run a business, asking other people and having good people around you. As I said in the beginning, yourself being an inspiring and supportive friend, like reaching out to people, meeting them, asking them what their opinion, because that outside was so much in our own heads as well that sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees. And it could just take a really insightful comment from somebody like yourself with Mark, that just triggers a whole journey. And also friends that kick your butt and say, here's a deadline. And getting involved in things the Manchester design thing that gave you a brief that kickstarted. So it's like doing the things, getting involved, meet the people, speak to people, ask people about your practice. I think all these things really, really help.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say, Penny, because I haven't mentioned it yet. But actually, obviously we work together as well. And and like that was a massive kick up the arse, because when we first worked together, and I basically taught you through all the stuff, that I wanted to do, that I've been doing. And you came up with the phrase or the type art thing again. And it was like you seeing something in the work as well that I hadn't said myself. Like, again, that's sort of, you don't need permission to do things, do you? But sometimes it feels like you do. It's like a habit to get out of. But sometimes somebody else going, oh, you're doing this. And you're like, oh, yeah, I'm doing this.
It's easier to own it if someone else, it's easier to own if someone else says it. If
and I think so. So it definitely is, like getting out of
your own head.
Out of your head. Yeah,
out of your own head and into the streets.
exactly. So I like, if I've got stuff like, I'll, you know, like there are certain things, like if I talk to my partner about it, like certain things will resonate with him more. He gives advice on certain things. Like I'll go catch up with, you know, like you or like other people. I don't know. And like you say, things like the deadlines. I work with amazing printers and all of those things kind of, yeah, it's like a teamy thing. That's kind of how I really like to work anyway. So yeah.
Collaboration being key. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Also working, you know, we work by ourselves. I predominantly, you know, work by myself. There's so many that a team of one, but there's always more people behind it and more collaboration. It's something I'm personally pushing for much more this year. The more I know, the more I'm sure about what I'm doing, the more people I need to get involved so I can focus on the main stuff. Because you're doing all the stuff, you're doing all the things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It is like letting go of bits that you don't need to do as well.
Well, and really enjoying and perfecting and crafting the bit that is your mega thing. Nice. I love that take up more space as well. I'll put, for anyone going, I don't want tiny guys, take up more space, what's this? I will put links to it all in the show notes so you can go take a look. And everything's on the website as well. But I'll do some direct. I'll do some direct links to things. So I think this leads us to our the second question of what does niche mean to you, and how would you describe yours?
Okay, so it is funny niche one, because I think again, you know, like nothing straightforward, but well, one, clearly, you know, this sort of idea of playful typography, I think summarizes all my work really well. And so I guess that's niche wise. I go with, you know, something like that. And I think one of the things I sort of struggle with a bit was that, and come back and forth with, is because, you know, I'm a graphic designer, but I want to make more sort of art-led stuff, but I still want to do some design stuff. But then I'm doing some stuff on the computer, then I'm printing some stuff, then I'm painting some stuff, then I might do some branding. So in my head, it was like, this is all these things. Is it niche? Is it not niche? You know, like battling, am I doing too many things? Should I just be doing this thing? But I think one of the sort of really good things about that is all of that still falls within this niche or whatever it is of, well, it is this sort of playful and playful typography is one thing, but I think it's more than that. It's kind of, it's not specifically, I can't say that word specifically. Yeah, not specifically just the typography, but it's kind of like the thinking as well. So I think one of the things that, well, I like to think, again, threads everything together. It's not just kind of, it's not like any old words, you know, like I don't tend to kind of just
not live, laugh, love.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Kitchen thing for dancing and all that shit. It's kind of trying to get something that says something as well. And I don't mean that in a super serious way. I mean, sometimes it is, but it's just something. So whether that be for me, for the print shop or something, which has come from my head, or whether it's for clients, you know, which is summarizing something that they need to say, but it's kind of that thing where it's not just complete decoration. It has some substance.
It's got a proper meaning.
Yeah, but equally, it's not, that's why it kind of lives together. It's not just, so kind of how it looks comes from me as well. So I think now what I can start to see is we can put all the things together, and even though they're all kind of different sort of styles, but they sort of look like
it's all
from the
playful,
same place.
though, isn't it? It's all playful.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
all the borders. And I think like how you've described on the site about working with people who have something to say, it isn't making meaningless type. It's even the thing that you initially kicked off with, the Manchester design brief. Yeah. That was like, if you were rewriting the rules, and I think a lot of them are rewriting rules, they're like changing the, demands on changing the status quo, and things that are seen quite heavy. And I think what's lovely in how you do it is, we've all got enough doom, especially, the doom list. And it's nice. I think it's a really great outlet to be able to talk about these things, but have something beautiful and fun and colourful to look at the same time. It sort of takes away that heaviness. So you can talk about serious things, but in a way that, is more accessible and joyful than, talking about a heavy thing and then making it look really heavy and horrid. And just going and hitting yourself somewhere with a stick.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's definitely exactly what I'm trying to do. And actually as well, because, I feel very strongly about lots of different things, like many people do. And I want to, there are things that you kind of want to say, but equally not in a judgmental way. I don't want to be like judgy or preachy or any of that crap, because basically everyone's got enough stuff on the plate. And
I think that's what I was meaning by accessible. So it's, I think you said it better there, saying, and
you want it to be such, if things, and that's why as well I try to make it so we don't say too much. It's almost like it's kind of open to people's interpretation as well. So
that's lovely.
So like there'll be the meaning that I might have put into it, but I think people read different things into things. And I think like one of my favorites that one of the prints that I made, which I'm just looking at it now, that's what I'm looking at, is okay, no. It's like, okay, no. And I think when I made that, like, again, from my head, and I'm like, oh, it's a bit lava lampy, okay, no. Like, what? But so many people got in touch and went, oh my God, yeah. Or something like that, like, or, oh my God, this completely resonates with me. And I know what I mean, but it's funny that 3 little, basically almost non-words, speak to people in different ways.
Skill. And I think, you have a skill with words. Sorry, I'm interrupting.
Oh, cheers. But I really like, that's what I mean. I really enjoy that. So, and some stuff works better than others, but it's funny the things that people connect with, I think. But it will mean something differently, and that's kind of what I like. But I want them to be fun. I want it to be, even if you don't put it on I want them to look like you could put them on your wall, even if it's not, even if it's not for your wall, even if it's for, like it's a brochure cover, or it's like any of those things. I want it to mean something, but I want it to look really beautiful as well, so people want to keep it, do something with it. So it's kind of, it's both, it's like wrapped up in the same thing. That's what
I love it, because as I mentioned as well at the beginning, that we work together quite a bit, collaborating for clients as well. And I love it that we've got the powerful messages really stripped down, really clear of what they're doing. And then it's this bit of, I call it like the Dotto sprinkle of magic that just sort of just gives it a real boost, because at the end of the day, it's hard work doing everything that everybody does. And if you can make it a bit more joyful and a bit more fun, whilst absolutely being serious about what they do, I think is a real skill.
Exactly.
Well, and that is what I love.
And some stuff, it is like you just open any like screen, social media, anything, and it is doom filled. So
and I love as well, because your point. Sorry, I think there's a bit of a lag, so I keep jumping in. Sorry, I'm saying you're really good about words while I talk over you all the time. But the thing that you mentioned about niche, which I wanted to just bring up on, because part of why I'm asking people it is because I get asked it so often about what does niche mean. And whilst there is a very clear description about it, I think it's also interesting to get people's different takes on it and different interpretations and what it means to them. And I think what you said about you doing a lot of things, but what it did for you was tie it all together, because it's not about I can only do this one thing. There's many different ways that one thing can manifest. And I think you do that really well. I think on the site as well, where it says like studio person and more, it's like that's literally saying I can do all these different things within this way that I do things within this niche.
Yeah, it's taken, that's the thing, it's taken a bit of a journey to get to that point for sure. But it definitely, it feels like the right thing. You know, I guess that's the point about having this little journey and stuff. Sometimes you come to this stuff quickly, but it doesn't always, you've got to figure your own way there. Well, with help from some good people as well.
Well, it's figuring your own way there. And another thing that I talk about that I think is relevant to that point is slow but sure. Like, I think a lot of what we're taught is like this fast hack, hustle this, and then you've got like, I've forgotten what you call it, where you get jealous of everybody's things because you're seeing it like, oh my God, they've just done that, and oh my God, they've just done that. And I think just holding your own, listening and looking and knowing things, but holding your own and developing it and crafting it and speaking to people, I think is a great way to do it. And slow burn is in a fast pace, I think. A slow burn, just doing it right, doing it well. I think there's a saying about it's the fastest way to get there anyway, because
I think so. It's funny actually, because I think you only notice this stuff when you look back, obviously. But that trap that you just mentioned about when you're looking at other people's stuff and you're panicking, you're going, oh my God, I can't do that. And you're like, why are they doing so much better? Why are they doing this? It's so totally pointless and unhelpful and wastes all your focus. And the sooner you sort of stop and we all do it, like I've done that loads of times, but the sooner you stop doing that and actually concentrate on what you're doing, that's when you can start to do something that's different in your way, even, and just build on that. And it does start to, that's when you start to get places, you start to kind of notice.
Well, I think
when you look back.
Yeah. And I think, because you do that the most when you're feeling most insecure. So when you're most unsure, maybe you've just made a big leap, a big change. Maybe you're in the midst of it and you've been doing it for a few years and you're like, I feel like I need to do a change, whatever. That's when you get those feelings the most.
Definitely.
But I think when you start to just dive in and do your own work and do the stuff, and I think it's both a reaction from inside you, like I get a little, just makes me happy, and also reaction from other people, because I think for myself as well, I've fought against trying to do all the things, and as soon as I just do the thing that I'm particularly good at, the reaction from other people is really powerful, and you're suddenly like, I'm feeling it, they're feeling it.
Yeah,
do more of this.
That is true. That is true. But again, it takes.
It does take time.
It's nerve-wracking doing those things, because to do that, you've got to stop doing the stuff that isn't helpful. But it's a bit lifeliney, that stuff, isn't it? You've got this like lifeliney stuff that you've been grabbing onto, and then maybe the stuff that you should be doing or that you want to do is over here.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep doing that. I don't know why I'm in a lake for this talk, but I'm like, over here you've got your little float thing, and over here you're like, I don't know why.
It's a good analogy. It's a good analogy. Yeah. Like Brené Brown has it where she...
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, Brené Brown has it where she says about the messy middle, like being like if you let go of the side and you swim into the island. So it must be a good analogy. This water.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think it's good for people to hear as well, that people just you don't just wake up and you have it. Like, it takes some work to find your thing and find your niche and do some splashing about, do some experimenting. And there's also this thing about we're constant, like, in one, it's like, say no to everything, know your boundaries, say no to everything. Then it's like, say yes to everything, be open to all the experiences and all that. And it's really like, you're literally being told both those things at the same time. And I think that splashing around is where you find out your own yeses and your own nos.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you need to try. You need to try some things that go wrong.
Yeah, and you can go too much the other way as well, because I've done exactly the same thing where I've been in a position where I've said yes to everything. You're like nearly lost my mind, burnt out, completely disastrous. And then I'll go, right, I'm not going to say yes to everything, say no to everything. Oh God, I've got nothing to do. I've just turned down some really good things. You know, like, you're right, it just doesn't work like that. And it is, some stuff you know is right, some stuff you don't. Some stuff you've got to try. Some things you realise afterwards, oh, okay, I shouldn't have done that. I'll do something different next time. But it's like constant learning, but you just keep getting slightly better at it, I guess.
And what you mentioned earlier about listening to your gut.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Like, it knows. It really knows, I think. Yeah, most of the time.
There was a great book that I'd say read, but I listened to it. And it's a poet lady, Jo. I'll find it and put it in the show notes as well. But she has a thing called the knowing. So
that sounds.
She was from the indigenous tribes in America, and she calls it a knowing. And I just thought that was so lovely. And it's that thing inside you that you know when you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, and not necessarily a criminal thing, but if you've said yes to something that maybe you've said yes for the wrong reasons, and I loved it. It was just saying the knowing, calling it the knowing.
It's funny as well, because it works with people as well, doesn't it? That there's all the stuff that you almost taught not. I think you're taught not to trust that stuff, you know, but like you do. I think I've noticed, even I've said this stuff to my daughter now as well. It's like, if you get a weird feeling about someone, I went, just
trust it,
stay away. Just trust that, stay away.
Well, and I think when you're working in a corporate environment, and for us in terms of that was for designers, that's in an agency environment.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily taught or given the space to develop that, because you're given a brief and you just work with that brief and you just work with those people, and you learn to adapt your way of working to how somebody else needs. You learn to just take whatever comes your way and flip it and turn it into something. And it's an amazing skill to have. And it's not all bad. And I really enjoyed my agency work when I was younger. I really enjoyed the structure of it. But it's been something later on that I had a knowing that I suddenly was like, I think I need to develop this intuitive thing of my own.
Yeah, that really makes sense.
And I think it's that. It's not necessarily that it's stamped out, but you're not given the space, or there's never any focus. Certainly in my experience.
It's funny
to develop that feeling. And I think that's more what it is.
Yeah.
So you keep it quiet. So with your work, when you're saying about, I no longer want to be quiet, it's both internally. Both internally and externally not being quiet, like listening to your own voice and making other people hear your voice as well.
Well, that's the thing, because again, with agency, because again, I wouldn't change anything. I got really good experience, worked with some really good people, all of those things, developed loads of really good skills. But one of the things that you're doing, and again, this is, I suppose it's the thing about being quiet and not being quiet, is rather than, I felt like you're not trying to solve a problem in the same way for the client, because actually you haven't got one client, you've got like 10. You've got, you do some work, you've got an accounts person, you've got, you might have a creative director, you might have something, you've got a client, you might have the marketing team, you might have another person, and every single person in that sort of thing has got some different feedback. So one of the main things that by the end of, like working in agency, that was probably the thing that I just couldn't take anymore, because rather than me going, I think this is going to work best here, I'm going, how can I get this signed off here, then here, then here, then here, then here, and this result isn't a result of what I think this should be. It's a result of all of these different opinions. And sometimes I'm not saying that isn't, good work came out of that, but I could no longer do that.
No, but I think there's a point where you're just like, I need to make my own art. And whether that's for clients, it's still you making art, whether that's for clients or literally art that you put on walls.
Well, that's it. Like when we start off, I guess that's it. When you, especially, working as a designer is, I love it. I still love it, but it is kind of, it's a different thing. It's kind of like, say, solving, these problems, making this stuff over here. But, there is still me, the little kid, the little kid artist who wants to make some stuff to put on the wall, and go, look what I did. That's still in there too. And I need to do that. I feel like I think when you do that stuff, you don't want to stop doing that stuff. That's the reason I got into this kind of job in the first place, because of that little kid. So it feels like a bit of a letdown to ignore that and kind of just do all this stuff. And I think they can coexist together. It isn't one or the other. I think it's about finding that balance and making sure, balance and all that stuff. But basically letting that kid, I don't know if I've got these analogies today.
It's the inner child, and I'm a big believer in all that, because I think what we were doing as kids, I think often what we were doing as kids is in some form becomes what we're naturally good at later, because you're drawn to doing it without being told.
Well, exactly. And if you think about the stuff that you loved doing, that is, that's the stuff. That's the stuff. So, and if you can figure out how to do a bit of that as well, I think, you're winning. And anyway.
Well, I think this takes us to the final question, because I think we're already touching on it, but what's next for you in your niche? So I know insider knowledge that you're going to you're starting a print course part, which I just love. That's something for you to develop that inner child work aside of what you're doing with your practice. I'm a big believer that doing that feeds the other work amazingly as well. I think it's how we develop and grow our own practice as well. So do you want to talk a bit about that maybe?
Yeah. So actually it is that, because again, I'm not great at having great big plans, in terms of I don't do things like have a 5-year goal, have a 10-year goal. I don't really do that, but it is more about making space for a bit of play with work as well. So there's the print course, which again, I've wanted to do this particular course for ages. And I just kept going, I haven't got time, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it. So this year I'm like, I'm going to do it. And it's just, it's like a half a day. And basically it's,
half a day over sure quite an amount of time. It's not just one half day.
Over a long period of time. But I'm basically looking at as just experimentation, play, learning some new skills. Like I used to do a lot of printmaking, at art college, but I've not really done it since. So now I work with printmakers, to do the prints and stuff like that. And I'm still going to do that, but I want this space to kind of play about with it as well and see what I can do and kind of experiment. It's in the same way I've been painting as well. And, I've got to build, like, that's basically what I started with before I got into design, but I've just never done that. I've never got back into it. And then you just think, I can't do this anymore. But like you've just got to do it again. And then again, you can't just immediately be brilliant. You've got to, this is the problem. You've got to practice and you've got to keep doing it. And then and then it looks a bit less shit. And then you do the next one and then it's better. So it's that thing about doing all those things that I've kind of let slide, but that I really, really loved. So, and I want to,
and that's really, really important.
Have that as So bringing it it's like a background. It's sort of part of it's just for me, but I also think it feeds into work as well. And that, again, that will they'll play off each other, and I think that will make it makes work better as well. So it's kind of, bringing those two things together. So keeping this separate time that's just going to be trying some stuff. Some stuff's going to work, some stuff's not going to work. It doesn't matter. I might show it people, I might not. I might just hide it all. I don't know. But
or you might paint it on a great big massive wall.
Yeah, exactly. So I think really, for me, the immediate future is making more time to do those things, and actually within that, there's again making more of the prints that I want to do. I've got absolutely shed loads of stuff that I want to do with those. I've got bits of writing that I do. I kind of want to keep up those things that I get out of habits I get out of the habits of doing these things when I'm busy, which, I need to. Client work, comes first. It's important. But it's trying to keep up. I don't know, make sure I've got time to do all the things as well, because,
Well, as you just said, which I thought was a perfect way to sum it up, is that they play off each other. I love that term phrase. I think they definitely do. Play into that as well. So I think they do. Yeah. No. Well, that's lovely, Dani. So I think we'll round it up there. I wanted to say thank you. And thank you for listening to our second ever episode. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, Dani.
All right. Thanks, bye.
I think you're all right.